Good evening, everyone. Please come to order. I would like to call to session the May 3rd, 2011 meeting of the Glendale City Council. May we have the roll call, please?
Council members Manukian.
Here.
Quintero.
Here.
Weaver.
Here.
Mayor Friedman. Mayor Pro Tem Najarian.
Here. Mayor Friedman is traveling to Washington, D.C. with the Los Angeles Chamber of Commerce to do some advocacy work. So that is why the mayor's seat is empty. May we have, I will do the I'll do the flag salute. If everyone will please rise, face the flag, place your hand over your heart, and repeat after me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please remain standing for the invocation, which will be delivered this evening by Al Garcilaso, Senior Chaplain, Glendale Adventist Medical Center.
Let's pray. Dear God, we thank you that we can be present here tonight at the City Council meeting, which reminds us of the civil and religious liberties that we enjoy here in this country. There is much to ponder and much to reflect upon. We think of the events of these past few days and our war on terrorism, and just pray that you will continue to guide the leaders of our country and that our actions and deeds will truly reflect your mercy and your justice. Be with us here tonight. Guide these proceedings. In your name we pray. Amen.
Thank you, Reverend. May we have your report, please?
The agenda for the May 3rd, 2011 regular meeting of the Glendale City Council was posted on Thursday, April 28, 2011 on the bulletin board outside City Hall.
Thank you. The next item.
Next item is presentation and appointments. At 3A is the agenda preview for the meetings of May 10th, 2011.
Ms. Beers.
Mayor Pro Tem Najarian, members of the City Council, on Tuesday, May 10th, we do have a special study session at 9 a.m., and that's Director of Administrative Services Finance, Budget Study Session, Community Services and Parks Department, the fee study, and other departmental budgets. That afternoon, for the Glendale Housing Authority, commencing at 2:30, we do have one item under business agenda, Director of Administrative Services Finance. This is regarding the Housing Authority budget presentation. The Glendale Redevelopment Agency, excuse me, again at 2:30, Director of Community Development, Professional Services Agreements, Change Orders, and Director of Administrative Services Finance regarding the Redevelopment Agency budget presentation. In the evening, for the Glendale City Council meeting, we have a number of consent items. General Manager of Glendale Water and Power proposals received to conduct feasibility studies, recommend cost-effective and reliable reconstruction options for Grandview Substation site, and prepare design-build specifications. And Director of Public Works regarding vacation of the first public alley south of Broadway, east of Isabel Street for the Glendale Superior Courts Improvement Project. We have a number of action items. City Treasurer, quarterly investment review as of March 31st, 2011. City Attorney and Director of Human Resources report on conducting labor negotiations. City Manager, this is regarding Mayors for Peace. City Attorney, council nomination options for members to the boards and commissions. We also have a number of hearings that evening. Director of Community Development, and this is the Glendale Register of Historic Resources listing and Mills Act contract for property located at 2990 Edgewick Road. Director of Community Development, Glendale Register of Historic Resources listing and Mills Act contract for the property located at 403 South Central. And Director of Community Development, this is proposed amendments. I'm not sure if this is coming forward. I think we may be doing this after the budget. That's held off. So that concludes my report, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Next item, please.
Next item at 3B is a presentation from Rose Float Association of a $45,000 check to the city for last year's Rose Float entry.
Hey, will the Rose Float members please come forward?
Members of the council, my name is Gary Ackerman. I'm the current president of the Glendale Rose Float Association. I'd like to take this opportunity at this time to present you with a check on our behalf of the association of $45,000 for our participation in the float.
Well, we appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Sure you do. I'd like to present just some members of my board here. Others couldn't be here because they had other commitments, but we're a group of concerned citizens of Glendale that love the float, and we are trying to maintain and keep it. What I gave you tonight was an application to join the Rose Float. Rocky, you know about this.
You will not call me a stick in the mud again.
I'll see you on another day. We've had one fundraiser at Scarantino's, and we're going to have another one at Casa de Ramos, and that's May 23rd of this month. We're planning on having fundraisers each month and a large dinner, so we hope to raise the funds to continue doing it. Although fundraising, as you know, in these economic times is going to be a little tight, but we're going to make every effort to do it.
So you're essentially fundraising year-round?
Yes,
And
from the start of the year.
we encourage the public to support your efforts.
Right.
The money does go towards our Rose Float that we see every January 1st.
Right. And we have a great float picked. We haven't got permission to use it yet because it's not approved yet. But I think you'd be excited when you do see it.
Okay, well, who would like to receive the check? Mr.
Oh, yes.
Samad?
Yes, thank you.
I missed that reference, but Mr. Manukian.
Here you go, Rafi.
Thank you, Gary. And it's a pleasure. I think the Rose Float is a great tradition that the city of Glendale has been continuing for how many years? It's been
This will be our 98th entry.
98 years. So I urge everyone to support the Rose Float Association, and if you can make a contribution, as I will shortly, I urge you to do so. Thank you very much for the
Thank you.
check, and the city of Glendale appreciates
you
your
again.
efforts. Thank you.
Thank you.
Take this with me.
Spend it wisely.
I shall. Their manager? There you go.
The next item, please.
Next item at 3C is a proclamation designating May 2011 as Older Americans Month.
Thank you. I have a proclamation signed by Mayor Friedman.
Watch this.
Carolyn Young and her associates, and everyone can come up. Everyone who's part of this presentation, come on up, folks.
No, there's more of them in town. No, we got them up into the hundreds.
Okay, thank you all for coming, and this is the proclamation. Whereas the City of Glendale is a community that includes 30,000 citizens aged 60 and older, and whereas the older adults in the City of Glendale are the roots from which our community grows, who bestow gifts of wisdom and insight upon younger generations, and strengthen the bonds between neighbors to create a better place to live, and whereas our society is enhanced by older adults aging peacefully in their communities, and whereas older adults in the City of Glendale should be commended for their role in creating and bolstering the fiber of our community and nation, and whereas our community can provide that recognition and respect by enriching the quality of life for older Americans, by increasing their opportunities to remain in their communities as active and engaged citizens, providing services, technologies, and support systems that allow seniors to foster and maintain connections with the community, emphasizing the value of elders by publicly recognizing their contributions to the diversity, strength, and unity of our community. That's the part about the technology. Now, therefore, Laura Friedman, Mayor of the City of Glendale, proclaims May 2011 as Older Americans Month and urges all citizens to take time this month to honor our older adults and the professionals, family members, and volunteers who care for them. Will Councilmember Weaver, please?
Figure. Let me see if I can get out of my chair.
It was your turn, Mr. Weaver. There's no assumption on your age. You're young at heart.
This is not peaceful retirement. Okay, how many over 70 here? Hands.
Over 70.
Okay, I'm with that group.
All right. They're lying. 80.
They're lying.
Wow. 82.
Yeah, I know we have some in Glendale over 100.
Yeah.
We have one at the center.
102.
102.
102.
Wow. Wow.
Going to be so impressed. She's up there, what, 104, 105? Amazing. Well, I don't know which one of you is going to keep this, but us seniors got to stick together. We're the backbone of this community.
Yes, you are.
How many were born here? Anybody born here? Okay, I got my hand up on that one. Congratulations, and let's live on for another year or two. Technology is going to even get better, okay?
I hope so.
I want to thank the council members and our mayor, who's I wish she was here today. I would love to meet her. Nice to have a woman in the seat it's been a long time. Anyway, as I'm very happy. My name is Carolyn Young, and I've been an advocate for seniors for many years. I was actually I wasn't born here, but I've lived here since I was 4 years old. And I went to Toll, Keppel, and Hoover, and taught at Hoover for a while. So I feel like I'm a long-term resident of Glendale, and now I'm on the other end. I'm not quite up to Mr. Weaver's age, but I'm now a senior myself. So I'm accepting this honor on behalf of the seniors here and on behalf of myself, too. I'm a volunteer for the Greater Glendale Council on Aging, which is the reason why I'm here tonight. And that foundation has been around for many years, I think since the 70s. And we've been an advocate for senior centers. We've been for seniors. We've been advocating for the senior center to be developed for many years. And I'm very proud to be here tonight to thank you that we're involved in putting that together. And we now have a beautiful senior center, don't we? Yes. Someplace that we're proud to go to, and those of you who are going to be seniors soon will be proud to go there too. Maybe you can do some working out in the state-of-the-art gym there. I know the senior center has increased its membership by many, many times because it has a beautiful setting and wonderful classes there. So. Also a part of the Greater Glendale Council on Aging is a foundation where we've done a lot of fundraising, and we have money where we give small grants to seniors that are in need. We pay for utilities that are overdue, even utilities that have been shut off. We pay for food, for medication, and some of those needs that seniors just don't have the money to pay for. So we're very proud of being able to do that. So anyway, I want to thank the ARC to have me here tonight to accept this honor in their name and in my name too. Thank you.
Have a peaceful evening.
Peaceful evening.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you. Mr. Kasakian, what's next?
3D is a proclamation designating May 14, 2011 as Fire Service Day.
Thank you. The next proclamation, issued by Mayor Friedman, is for Fire Service Day. And it goes as follows. folks. I know you're excited, but... Whereas the International Association of Fire Chiefs has designated the second Saturday in May as Fire Service Day, a day to focus attention on the varied and technical services being offered by the fire departments of the United States and Canada. And whereas today's firefighters are technically trained and highly skilled professional public servants who perform many public services in addition to the suppression of fire, such as emergency medical response, building inspection, and public fire safety education. And whereas the public can gain valuable life-saving knowledge by seeking out and participating in fire education activities provided annually by the fire department, now therefore Laura Friedman, Mayor of the City of Glendale, proclaims May 14th, 2011 as Fire Service Day and calls upon the people of Glendale to participate in the open house and activities offered at Glendale fire stations and to take full advantage of the information provided by fire department personnel to enhance their safety and the safety of their families in the event of a fire or other emergency. And I'd like to ask Councilmember Quintero to please present this.
Congratulations, Chief. I just want to congratulate you for doing a tremendous job of leading the men and women of the Glendale Fire Department, and to remind everyone that the fire season is really already with us. We've had some fairly high winds these past few days, so everyone has to remember, all of us that live in the hillsides, we have to remember to get your grasses and bushes trimmed so that these gentlemen won't have to be called into service. Congratulations.
Thank you. Good evening, Councilman Najarian and members of the City Council. I'd like to take the opportunity to invite the community out on Saturday, May 14th, to Fire Service Day. At our headquarters fire station at 421 Oak Street is the fire station where we'll be having the most activities. We're going to start off the morning with a pancake breakfast at 9 o'clock. I'd like to invite the community out to come on out and have a meal with us, learn a little bit about public education and fire safety. We're going to have demonstrations going on all morning, fire station tours. We're going to have fire safety education for the kids, and then a variety of activities that are going to be going on from 9 to 2 p.m. on Saturday, May 14th. All of our fire stations will be open to the community, but we would really like to showcase Fire Station 21 and all the activities that are going to be going on there. It's going to be a great day once again. Every year the community really comes out, and this year should be no different. There's going to be a lot going on, an exciting day for the community at the fire station.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it, Chief. So that's this coming Saturday, a week from this Saturday, May 14th, 9 a.m., Fire Station 21, pancake breakfast. I know you tear cars apart and shoot hoses and have all sorts of other displays and information. So it's a great event. Next item, please.
Next item on the agenda, City Council and staff comments.
Mr. Weaver?
Well, I usually don't talk about these things, but this kind of special, I didn't even get there because I was doing another event on Sunday, but we had our first Verdugo Mountains 10K trail run and hike. And I asked for some statistics on it so I could tell you all about it. We'll have pictures, too, that were brought in. It was 6.2 miles in distance. Elevation gain was 1,735 feet. Since we started the website, almost 9,000 people have hit on the website. The total runners on the course were 503, way more than we expected. 587 registered. The top male was Daniel Geilman of Los Angeles, 43 minutes, 27 seconds. The top female, Liliana Hernandez of Glendale, 48 minutes, 52 seconds. And she's a graduate of Hoover High School. The top Glendale finisher was Enrique Esperanza of Glendale, 57 minutes, 41 seconds. He also works for the Parks Recreation Division in Brand Park, And apparently he's been practicing for weeks to do that. The oldest finisher was 83 years old. Lona Tyson of Monrovia, 2 hours, 28 minutes, and 1 second. The youngest finisher was 6 years old. Nathaniel Marco of Sunland, 2 hours, 3 minutes, and 6 seconds, which he beat the 83-year-old. He better. Huh? We old Americans, you know, are Glendalians. Let's see, we also had city employees from Glendale, Carpovalitis, 1 hour, 13 minutes, 18 seconds. And let's see, Artie Kasakian, 2 hours, 15 minutes, 11 seconds. Let's see. That was, it took him 12 minutes longer than the 6-year-old.
I was keeping the stragglers company. we were talking.
And he beat the senior.
I was beaten by an 80-year-old, though, I will say.
By 13 minutes, you beat the, not bad, Artie, you put right in the middle there. 71 runners. Listed Glendale as a hometown. 10 runners from La Crescenta, 3 from Montrose, 47 men, 37 women. Oldest was 69, the youngest was 10. And this is the most interesting thing. We had runners from Las Vegas, Nevada, Houston and Austin, Texas, Chicago, Illinois, and Arlington, Virginia. I'd like to talk to some of those people. They came clear to Glendale to run on our hills. Boy, that's something else. They went on, they had 22 sponsors. One who really sticks out to me is Puma shoes. And they've already said they want to be back next year and do even more in terms of being a sponsor. A whole laundry list of people here. If I don't read them all, then I'd be cheating. So a lot of them are well-known restaurants, whatever, in the city. And I guess this is the beginning of a tradition that we'll be seeing every year from now on. I know some 10 years ago I talked about having cross-country up in our hills. Right off, running up in those hills, it's so beautiful you can see so far. Well, maybe someday we'll have cross-country up there too with the schools. It'll be fun. So that's it on that one item. The other item, I'd like to go ahead and nominate my people from the different commissions in Glendale. Arts and Culture, a lot of these are repeats because I put them on and I think they're doing a great job. Arts and Cultural, Stephen Lee. Audit Committee, Louis Sod. Building and Fire, Eric Kashishian. CDBG, Efren Oliveras. DRB1, Young Yu. DRB2, Alec Barifian. GWP, Yu Yao. HPC, Historic Preservation, Zeri Shear. Parks and Rec, you saw up here, Dottie Sharkey. Planning, Chang Lee. TPC, Aram Sahakian. Staff Commission of Women, Denise Miller. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Mnuchin.
Yes, thank you. I would like to nominate the rest of the commissions. For the Audit Committee, Edward Azari, who's already serving. For the Building Board of Appeals, Alexander Wu, who's also already serving. CDBG Advisory Committee, Alexander Oganessian. Alexander is a veteran of the U.S. Army, Special Forces. He served with many medals and awards. He served in Bosnia, Afghanistan, and Iraq. I don't need to say anything more about him for those who are interested. For Historic Preservation, Lorna Vartanian. Lorna has been a long-time activist in the city of Glendale. She was the president of Rossmore Mountain Homeowners Association, past president, past treasurer, and the treasurer of the Glendale Historic Society. So for Historic Commission, Lorna. Historic Preservation Commission, Lorna Vartanian. For Status of Women, Linda Burns. Linda has been a longtime friend and a longtime Glendale activist in women's issues, and I'm pleased that she has accepted my invitation to serve on the Status of Women. For Transportation and Parking Commission, Mr. Espiritu has asked me to remove his name due to health reasons, and in his stead, I will nominate Mr. Arsen Mangasarian. Arsen is a professional, and he is supervising transportation planner for the City of Los Angeles Department of Transportation. I will nominate him for the Transportation and Parking Commission. And I have some comments regarding the reports that are signed by staff. When someone signs instead of, let's say, a department head, I would like to know who it is that's signing it, because I can't make out the signatures. So if someone's signing on behalf of Mr. Howard, it should say, print the name and then sign for Mr. Howard. As I was doing some reading with the CAFR, it's very interesting reading in front of the fireplace, on Friday night. It's like a good mystery. I was looking at pages 49 and 50. Pages 49 and 50 deal with other post-employment benefits, and there's considerable accrued liability and impacts, 49.8 million and 25.6 million, as well as the liability for OPEB at 6/30/2010 of 11 million. I would like a report indicating what these liabilities are and where they stem from, and a full report in terms of their balances and what the city owes, as well as the post-employment benefits. I requested before that we get a cost analysis on that as well. I would like to know what the cost is to the city on an annual basis. The last capital budget was in 08-09. I couldn't find anything after that. I know we do a 10-year budget, a 5-year budget with a 10-year plan.
Jim,
Okay.
you're
Pardon me, we adopt a capital budget every year.
Okay. I couldn't find one on the internet. Maybe I didn't look in the right places, but if someone can help me find
We
the
adopt.
latest one, I would appreciate it. I would also like to know the status of the existing capital improvement projects. There were reports in the last capital budget that I looked on, when they started, how much it cost, and what the balance is. So if I find the budget, the capital budget, I would think that would be in there already. So I would like to request monthly financial statements with variance analysis. I'm sure you give those to your department heads. I would like to get a copy of those. I would also like to put on the agenda sometime in the near future the hillside ordinance and the revisions to the hillside ordinance, as well as the view ordinance, and at least the status in terms of the view ordinance as to where it is. And for the last item, last week I pulled an issue. I pulled an item from the agenda that was a consulting appropriation for $600,000. And to the question Mr. Quintero asked, that can that fund be used for other purposes, he was said no. But I have, it's going through the budget, I found that you do transfer from the enterprise funds to the general fund, and in 2009-2010 there was a transfer to the general fund for $1 million from the refuse disposal fund, which is the fund that was in question last year. So I would like to inform Mr. Quintero that the information you got last week was incorrect, and that those sums can be used for other purposes and they can be transferred to the general fund. And I would like to see it back on the agenda, actually, that item, but I know that the council has already voted on it, and unless the rest of, or one or two of my colleagues want to revisit that item, I know I can't put it back on the agenda, but I would like to make it clear that we can transfer, if the council selects or votes to, we can transfer from the enterprise funds to the general fund if there are excess funds. So that is all for my comments today.
Well, I'd like to put that discussion on the agenda. You're talking about the Public Works?
Yes.
Yeah, I'd like to put that on the agenda.
I'm sorry, help me understand what you want back on the agenda.
The item?
The item that you approved?
Yeah.
So you want a reconsideration of the matter?
Yes.
I'll have to turn to the city attorney to explain how that comes back on the agenda.
Well, and I think Mr. Starboard and Mr. Mnuchin was already referring to require somebody who was voted to approve it to ask that it be brought back on the agenda.
I voted against it, so I can't do it.
Right. So I think Mr. Quintero is asking that it be brought back on the agenda.
Yeah. Well, I'm particularly interested whether, in fact, some of that monies could be transferred or not. You say that it can.
Well, one's a specific question. The other is more general in terms of transfer.
I can respond here,
Right.
but we may
some
be
point,
getting this
yeah.
if I get into too much of an explanation.
At some point, if we can provide a brief response if Mr. Starboard thinks he can address it succinctly, and then we can decide whether to bring it back.
I don't think we can discuss it here or
Okay.
respond to it. I think we should bring it back.
Okay.
But someone else has to request.
I'm for bringing it back.
Okay.
And we would also need someone else to agree, though, because our policy is 2 people to agree.
Can I agree?
And unfortunately, I don't think so, because again, as you noted, you're...
Okay, I think if we can't bring the item back, we should at least bring the discussion of the transfer of the funds, and I can
Yes.
certainly agree to that.
I think if you want to have a general discussion of use of
Enterprise
funds
right.
in the general fund,
And
that's...
frankly, we can have that during any of the budget discussions on the enterprise
I would agree.
funds. We can have that broad discussion of what can be transferred and what's the authority for transfer.
Okay.
Yeah, so
Probably
and you've
will.
got Public Works coming up with almost all of the enterprise funds.
Okay.
So we'll schedule it for that.
That's it for my comments. Thank you.
I'm sorry. I think Councilmember Mnuchin also requested some items related to the planning
Hillside,
ordinance.
right, Hillside ordinance.
So
I would like to know, I understand that there was a number of hearings, and eventually it was put on hold for some reason. I would like to know what the status is, including the view ordinance. Back in 2007, view ordinance was a hot issue. It's a hot issue for me, and I think we should revisit it.
Well,
And the Hillside ordinance, you don't have to respond, just give me a report, tell me this is where it is, and I will agendize it.
Let me suggest that we'll give you a status report written on the
Right.
Hillside ordinance, and
Right.
then we'll give it to all council members. You
Right.
can decide if you want to bring a matter back.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And we'll do the same thing on the view ordinance.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Quintero?
Okay, I want to talk about an event, Take Back the Night, which is a rally for domestic violence. It's put on by the YWCA and the Commission on the Status of Women. Mr. Kasakian was also there. And I want to report that he walked all the way to the YWCA along with everybody else. He was in the middle of the pack. He didn't lead or... anyway, it was a great event. It always is. And the 2 organizations do a great job of putting it together. And the emphasis always is on the general issue of domestic violence and how it affects everyone's lives, children, male, female. It knows no economic boundaries, and just a great yearly event. That's it, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. I attended a very great annual event. It's the 10th annual Armenian Festival put on by the Armenian Relief Society, and all the ladies involved in that board and membership. It was at the Civic Auditorium, Saturday and Sunday. Very good opportunity to sample Armenian cuisine and see Armenian dance and music and crafts. Special thanks to the police department and to the Parks Department and Ross Ferris, who managed to deal with some unforeseen challenges which popped up just before the festival was supposed to begin. And I do appreciate them all handling those challenges in a very professional and sensitive manner. The mayor last week asked those of us who sit on other boards, regional boards and commissions, to give occasional updates. And I do have an update from the MTA board. It's the Los Angeles County Metropolitan Transportation Authority. We had a couple interesting items come up before the board. Last week was our monthly meeting. We had a motion that I made with Supervisor Antonovich to study infrastructure improvements on the Metrolink Antelope Valley line, which goes from Union Station through Glendale, Burbank, through the North Valley to Santa Clarita and out to Palmdale. And the motion asked for several different concepts. One is to find better ways to make that route safer in terms of double tracking, in terms of making grade separations, more secure fencing so no one can get onto the right-of-way, making the tunnels safer, and included in that are closing some at-grade crossings. So there is a pool of money that's available through the MTA, and that's going to study the initial reports and studies. The other item that we dealt with, all you bike fans, Colin Bogard in the audience, we had a motion, and it was approved, to really change the way we're dealing with bikes that are brought onto buses to the light rail cars that we have, the Metro Rail. We are going to be changing our current rules. We're going to be permitting more bikes to be brought on during the peak hours. We're going to be removing seats from buses and the rail lines to accommodate more bikes so we can get that last mile of connectivity between the rail stop or the bus stop and your place of work or your home. It is included in that motion are studies as to how the MTA can better use station bikes. Mr. Quintero referred to that last week when he reported on, where were you, in Seville or Madrid? Seville. Station bikes or other ways where bikes can be rented or shared at stations and then returned and locked up. So the MTA is going to be studying that and hopefully becoming a more greener and sustainable agency and transportation region. Lastly, the MTA is currently evaluating projects, proposals for funding. It's called the Call for Projects. Glendale has two proposals submitted. One is for, is it 8 buses, Steve? 8 CNG buses. The other, is that the second was the fiber link to the transportation center. It's being carefully scrutinized by the technical staff. I think the value of those projects are well into the millions for the city, and I'm doing everything I can to clarify and make our applications be seen with the full merit that they currently contain. I think that's about as safe as I could couch those remarks. Are there any other comments?
What was the second project?
It's a fiber optic.
It's a fiber optic installation that helps connect the traffic signals to the Transportation or Traffic Operations Center. It also has other purposes for the city in GWP and some of our other operations, as well as the private sector if we ever move that way and get fiber throughout the city.
Any comments from staff? Mr. Kasakian.
I just want to say one of my colleagues asked why I was walking so much this last week. It was just to work off all the food I ate at the ARS festival. So, and the 10K hike up the hill, very humbling experience. When little kids and the older Americans are passing you by, it reminds you that it's time to hit the gym again. So hopefully I'll improve on my time next year, Councilmember Weaver.
I'll be here to see.
We'll be asking you for monthly updates on your gym time, Mr. Kazaki.
Mr. Zern.
Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, I just want to remind everyone that this Thursday, May the 5th at 6 p.m., Caltrans will be holding a community meeting here in the city of Glendale at the Municipal Services Building 105 at 6 p.m., and this is to discuss their upcoming major project, which is the installation of high-occupancy vehicle lanes along the 5 freeway. It'll be widening the freeway on both sides. We have a lot of residents in that area over by the western off-ramp that will be impacted by this. I think many of you had some notes when they came to the grubbing and clearing out of some trees, but there is a lot more work involved, and this is an opportunity to come and hear Caltrans' presentation and ask them all of the pertinent questions related to that project. It's a long-term project, so I recommend that you show up and be loaded with your questions.
On that note, I did have a chance to speak to the district director, Mike Miles, who apologized profusely to the City Council of Glendale and basically admitted that their public outreach folks did a terrible job in terms of making the extent of the construction and the addition of that HOV lane apparent to the residents in the affected neighborhood. So this is perhaps an opportunity where they can fall on their sword to make things right and at least keep the public informed. Next item, please.
Next item is the consent items, including minutes. The following are routine and may be acted upon by one motion. Any member of the council or the audience requesting separate consideration may do so by making such request before a motion is proposed.
Mr. Mnuchin.
I would like to pull 5E.
I have 5.
Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, I'm sorry. We'd like to take 5E off calendar.
Okay, 5E is off, so we'll deal with
No,
that
why?
at a future date.
Not because you asked for it to be pulled, I assure you.
Sure.
Okay, I do have a request to pull 5D, so that leaves 5A, B, C, and F.
Mayor Pro Tem Nazarian, I'll move the remainder.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Who was the second on?
Second.
Thank you. Council members Mnuchin,
Yes.
Quintero,
Yes.
Weaver,
Aye.
Mayor Friedman, Mayor Pro Tem Najarian.
Yes. 5D, please.
5D is Director of Public Works regarding banner request from the Glendale Sunrise Rotary for use of the city poles and light standards. D1 is motion to approve the request by Glendale Sunrise Rotary for the installation of light pole banners for the Not Even for a Minute program.
Steve Ropfogel.
Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, thank you very much. This is this year's Chair, Eddie Einam, and we'd like to start by showing a short 30-second PSA, I think. There it goes.
Now sit right here. Don't touch anything. Mommy's going to be right back.
It only takes seconds for the unthinkable to happen. Stop. Think. Remember. And whatever you do, never, ever leave children unattended in or around a vehicle, not even for a minute. For more information, go to notevenforaminute.org. Brought to you as a public service by the Los Angeles County Medical Association Alliance and the Glendale Sunrise Rotary Club.
This is the fourth year that we've done this program, and one of the things that I passed out to all of you are some window decals that, with your permission, I'll also leave in the back for anyone that wants to take them tonight. But this is just one more way to remind people about not leaving children in or around cars. If you put the decal on your car, maybe somebody will see it. Just 2 or 3 weeks ago, we had an incident at the Costco in Burbank, where somebody was just going into the car just for a minute, or just going into Costco for a minute to fill a prescription, and by the time the police got there, the inside of the car was 115 degrees. Luckily, nothing happened to the child, but this is something that is really very, very important, and we're trying to let people know about this. And also, the other thing I'd like to pass out for our council members are the opportunity to have a banner with your own names on it. I know that Mayor Pro Tem Najarian has done this in the past, and hopefully you'll also join him. And the PSA that you just saw, we have it in 4 different languages and 3 different versions, or 5 different versions rather, including Korean, Spanish, and Armenian. And for anyone that's interested, we also have window banners for stores. If anybody wants to get any of these items, you can either call me. My cell number is 818-482-1445. And if you want to order banners, Eddie's phone number is 818-923. I should have been up here with the earlier with
1343
with the older Americans. So that's my report, or our plea, and we hope that you'll approve this as you have in the past. Thank you.
Our thanks go out to the Sunrise Rotary for doing this. This is your 5th year or 4th?
4th year.
And you do reference that almost near tragic event a couple weeks ago, and fortunately the young child was not injured, but especially now with these hot temperatures, it's very appropriate.
And in places where, in the north and the Midwest, where you have cold, the same thing happens in the winter. Luckily, we don't have that with hypothermia. Or a kid playing around a car and it getting out of gear and rolling back and running over somebody. Thank you.
I'll move 5B.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Council members Menuchyan,
Yes.
Quintero,
Yes.
Weaver,
Aye.
Mayor Friedman, Mayor Pro Tem Najarian.
Yes. Next item, please.
Next item would be oral communications, a 3-minute announcement portion.
Okay. I do have a card. I do have several cards. First is Sally McKellar, followed by Leon Mayer.
Right. I'm Sally McCallum, and I'm speaking on the part of the Associates of Brand Library and Cultural Center. And we have a program which is called Talking About Art that runs once a month, and we bring in artists from all over, some really very interesting people. So our next program will be right after you finish your pancakes at the fire department. You come up to Brand Park and to the art gallery portion of the place, and you can hear from Mark Stephen Grenfield, who is a very interesting man. Here's a picture of him. I don't know whether we can get it. And what he's talking about is why I do this work. And he has been the director of the Municipal Art Gallery in Los Angeles. He's been an administrator for the municipal arts for the city of Los Angeles. He teaches at Los Angeles City College, teaches art, design, drawing, and art history. He's a very interesting man, and he was also part of the Getty Scholars Program. So I'm looking forward to a very exciting lecture from him. I will, as soon as I find it, I will quickly read you one of his statements. His art is very provocative. You could tell a little bit from what I showed you, but it has a really wonderful intention. He says about his art, "If you are discomforted by what you see, I invite you to examine those feelings, for out of this examination will come enlightenment." And he's talking about stereotypes with his art and prejudice and how to get rid of that. And he does it with his artwork. It's very remarkable stuff. So if you will come Saturday, May 14th at 2 p.m. to Brand Park, to the Brand Art Library Recital Hall, you can see Mark Stephen Greenfield and listen to him talk, and there'll be discussions, and it's for everyone. It's not just for artists. We would love to get more of the art community involved with these discussions. That's why we have them. And it's for the greater community, because whether you are just someone who looks at art, possibly dislikes it, or doesn't understand it, this will give you some enrichment, some enlightenment, and broaden your whole scope of education in that area. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Leon Mayer.
Acting Mayor Najarian, members of the council, Mr. Starbird, and staff. My name is Leon Mayer. I'm here on behalf of the Friends of the Glendale Library, and I'd like to urge anybody who hasn't taken advantage of the Brand Library, shame on you. They have great programs there, including the program that's just been announced. Now, most of you have heard me talk a few times about our program tomorrow night at Central Library. Lisa Napoli, Shangri-La, Radio Shangri-La. For the older people here, I urge you, if you haven't heard about it before, go back in time to Lost Horizons, the Himalayas, and the book by Lisa Napoli, who's visited Bhutan a couple of times, stayed there for a long period of time to write this book and work on the radio station with the high school kids there in Bhutan, the happiest kingdom in the world according to her. Now, on May 18th, that's a Wednesday, 7 o'clock, Central Public Library, we're having a special treat. We're having Leanne Dolan. I guess they haven't put the picture up. Okay, Leanne Dolan is going to talk about her book, Helen of Pasadena. And Leanne Dolan is from Pasadena, and this book was cited by the Los Angeles Times as a great, provocative, and fun book. And let me real quickly read about Leanne Dolan so I can not take advantage unduly of our time. She is a writer, producer, talk show host, podcast pioneer, social mediator consultant, produces Chaos Chronicles, the Oprah.com weekly, Satellite Sisters, and she has 4 sisters, and she writes about them in this book. And she's also been on the Today Show, CBS Sunday Morning, the Oprah Winfrey Show, the Oprah Magazine. She's a real live wire. And Laurel Patrick, who used to be the library director, just raves about her. And so we urge everybody to consider coming to the library on May 18th to hear Leah Dolan talk about her book. You'll be able to buy the book, have her autograph the book. And again, I urge everybody to park at the structure on Maryland Avenue so you can get validated for 3 hours when you come to the library. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Colin Bogart, followed by Debbie Tannenbaum.
Mayor Pro Tem Najarian, council members, city staff, good evening. My name is Colin Bogart. I'm with the LA County Bicycle Coalition working on the Safe and Healthy Streets Plan project. As you know, May is Bike Month, so I wanted to stop in this evening and very briefly tell you a little bit about some of the upcoming events and invite you and the viewers at home to attend. Tomorrow, May 4th, we have a Bike to Work Day Expo in partnership with the Glendale TMA, Transportation Management Associates, at 11:30 a.m. on Brand Boulevard. On Monday, May 9th, we're going to be doing a basic bike repair workshop, and that's going to be at the Central Library. And then on Saturday, May 14th, I'm very excited about this one, we're going to be doing a Glendale ice cream ride. It seems I have quite a bit of competition for May 14th, and there'll be lots of choices that day. All details for these events are listed on the Bike Month website, which is www.la-bike.org/Glendale, or people can call 818-334-9731. All of these events are free and open to the public, and once again, I invite you to attend, and the viewers at home also. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Debbie Tannenbaum.
Good evening, council members, mayor, pro tem, everyone. Thank you for representing the city of Glendale, and thank you for recognizing the older seniors. I am an instructor for older seniors, the English program through Glendale Community College, and I'm teaching at Glendale at Senior Center. I've been teaching there for about the last 4 years, and my student roster has 49 students enrolled in my class. And I get about 30, 35, 40 students coming into my class 4 days a week for 3 hours in the afternoon from 1 to 4. Because I'm working for Glendale College, they have canceled many of their classes, as I'm sure you know, this summer, and one of the classes that was canceled was this English class for the seniors there at the center. It doesn't so much affect me. It does affect me, but I can handle it. But I know that a lot of my seniors depend on English learning, community outreach. They do come to the center for other services as well, but they do need support in their English skills. It's a benefit for everyone concerned, because the more English they know, the less services they need from the city. They're able to communicate their needs without a translator. They're able to fill out an application hopefully once without too much difficulty. They can attain citizenship and be a productive member in this society. So because it is May is recognition of Seniors Month, I would like to ask, and I know the city is on a big budget crunch. We all are, everyone is, but if you could donate $5,000 for a 6-week program at the center, it's only $5,000. It's not $1 million. It's not $1 billion. It would pay for the seniors to have this English class for 6 weeks. It comes to about $3.50 per hour at the center for these seniors. But because $10 a day for them is a lot for some of them who are on fixed incomes, they're retired, they need this, and the city needs it as well, because the more they learn, the more they're able to rely on their own selves and still feel more self-sufficient and have better social and cultural skills at their fingertips, and they can actually be a productive member. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Hachik Shamirian.
Is there announcements?
My name is Shamirian Khachik. Please, I can let me Armenian language. Arkeli or Nigerian. Karagam hayran kusa.
Garak hayran khosel har chiga.
Chigali?
No, har.
Kis England chan karla kusa.
Hayran garak khosel har chiga.
Hayran chigali?
Garak. Karna khosilayo. Resuming says.
Arkeli Nigerian. Your Paron Rafi Manukian. Thank you everyone. Մենք դասարան որ սովորում ենք, իսկ կարծ ընթացվա որ այս դասարան եթում ենք մեր տիչերը շատ հարգված, շատ կանգանքով մեզի դասատարից լավ սովորում ենք։ Բայց հատուկ շնորհակալություն մեկ առ մեկ ձեզանից շնորհակալություն եմ հայտնում, որ այս առիթը տվել եք հանդիպենք ձեզի։ Շատ ուրախ ենք դրա համար։ Եվ խնդրում եմ, մեծ դժվարությունները, որս առաջացել է, ինչպես նախորդ առաջվա շենքը որ սարքակ, մենք շատ շնորհակալ ենք դրա համար, նորից այս որ ուզում եղել է, այս նոր պրոբլեմ որ եղել է մեզ համար, այս էլ մեզ համար հարթեք, հատուկ շնորհակալություն բոլորից։
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor Pro Tem and Council, just wanted to say that there was a miscommunication. The speakers who just approached the podium are first-time speakers at a council meeting, and we've just explained to them and clarified what the 3-minute portion is for. I can also go further and explain to the individuals who have not yet spoken that they can await and speak during the 5-minute portion.
I don't have a problem hearing from the public.
As long as we have a policy to...
You as Mayor Pro Tem can make an exception. There's only one person who's there as well. You want to make him wait?
He may wish to speak for more than 3 minutes. Okay. So who do we have? Well, there's more than one.
I just want to translate very short what the gentleman said.
Yes, you could summarize.
He thanked everyone for providing the services, and he thanked the teacher for having a wonderful class and helping him with his life, and he asked us to, as the individual said, to help out. So thank you very much.
I believe the other 2 cards I have wish to address items that fall outside of the general public announcements. So I've asked the clerk's office to explain to them just to wait. Hopefully it won't be too long till we move through the agenda. Then they'll be able to speak and, of course, have the opportunity to speak for a full 5 minutes at that point. I don't have any other cards for this portion of oral communications. Let's move on to the next item, please.
Item 7, under adoption of ordinances. 7A is ordinance amending specific portions of the California Building Standards Codes as Volume 9, Green Building Standards of the Glendale Building and Safety Code 2011, offered on April 19, 2011 by Councilmember Weaver. 7A1 is resolution adopting legislative findings, supporting amendments and changes to the California State Building Standards Code as contained in the Glendale Building and Safety Codes 2011.
I do have a card from a member of the public, Patrick Masihi.
Mayor Pro Tem Najarian and members of the City Council, last time I was here, we discussed this issue concerning the Cal Green ordinances and guidelines. I'm just here to commend the City Council for going back and reviewing the guidelines and coming up with new amendments. I just talked to Mr. Stuart Tom, and I was assured that the Tier 1 will only apply to large dwellings, 5,000 square feet and above. So the rest of the residents who want to add a bedroom or a bathroom to their home are not going to be forced to put brackets for solar panels. That we have down now, so that's a good thing. And just to correct some of the misconceptions of a couple of council members, to make your house solar ready and put brackets on your roof and make your roof solar ready, it's not a few $100 expense. It's a couple of $1,000 expense. And I'm happy that this particular ordinance now only reflects Tier 1 guidelines for new dwellings that are going to be 5,000 square feet and above. It will not affect 99.9% of the dwellings in Glendale, which are less than 5,000 square feet. So with that, I just want to thank staff and the City Council for going back and coming up with these amendments. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. This was discussed at length and argued, but Mr. Manukian, did you have a chance to get acquainted?
Not as well as I wanted to, because I didn't have the time. But the issue that Mr. Masihi brought up, I would like to know exactly where it is in the ordinance that issue has been addressed.
Mayor Pro Tem Najarian, members of the council, Mr. City Manager and staff, I'm Stuart Tom, building official for the city. As you may recall, the ordinance which was proposed included 12 additional proposals which exceed the basic Cal Green. The item which was just raised is actually the 12th of the proposed amendments. This was referred to or suggested by the council as the so-called monster dwelling provision. And what this does is brand new dwellings with a floor area over 5,000 square feet in size would be held to the full Tier 1 package, one item of which includes providing solar provisions on the roof. As was just discussed, the full Tier 1 package will not apply to any new construction smaller than 5,000 square feet. There are other provisions, some of the other 11 provisions, which are residential in nature, which will still apply to new construction. One of the items that the council directed me to consider was that additions and alterations to dwellings not have to comply with any of these additional standards, and that is the case here. These additional standards actually augment Cal Green as it was codified by the state, and the Cal Green provisions themselves do not apply to any additions or alterations, and this proposal does not change that.
Where exactly does it say so?
Where does it say so?
I may, Councilmember Manukian, on page 2 of the ordinance, section 301.
Page 2?
Yeah, it's section 301.2.3.
Yes.
Talks about single-family dwellings greater than 5,000 square feet being subject to Cal Green Tier 1.
Above that, it also has low-rise residential buildings. It says newly constructed low-rise residential buildings, as defined in Chapter 2 of this code, it shall be applicable to all the requirements. What is a low-rise residential building? Someone builds a 1,500 square feet home, and they have to abide by all these regulations?
A low-rise residential building.
In addition to the California Cal Green.
Let me start by the definition, as you requested, of a low-rise residential dwelling is a single-family dwelling, or actually any residential building less than 6 stories in height. So this was intended to also include low-rise multifamily residential buildings. I think the way to assure the council and the community that this will not apply to any additions and
and alterations is in the scoping of the code itself. Cal Green does not apply to any additions and alterations. It only applies to new construction, ground-up construction, and the provision which was added to require Tier 1 is an amended proposal which only applies to the 5,000 square feet.
So we're relying on California code to clarify our code?
No, our code clarifies California code.
Okay, but it's not clear when I read this section, and when it talks about low-rise residential buildings, it can be interpreted either 6 stories or lower or a single-family home. So it's not clear to me when I'm reading it. It's not clear to me that it does not apply to the single-family homes.
If I may, the language, Councilmember Manukian, states that the provisions of Chapter 5 for non-residential mandatory measures apply to newly constructed buildings other than those defined as low-rise.
Which section are you reading?
Oh, the section that you referred to earlier, 301.2.2.
I was reading 2.1. Okay.
Oh. That's for residential.
Did I have to open a public hearing?
No.
I know this was previously...
It was not a public hearing.
It was never...
That's fine. To me, it's not clear, but let me ask another question from the city attorney. Is this a land use issue? I've asked this before, and I've said no, it's not a land use issue where it needs 4 votes.
With respect to the charter provision that requires the 4 votes, it is not. It doesn't cover.
I've had much less important issues that have come in front of council that have required 4 votes than something like this. I don't want to bring the example. I can bring a private. Well, I'll tell you, grilling outdoors for businesses. That was voted on a small outdoor grill. That was voted on 3-2. It passed, but we were told that since it was a land use issue, it needed 4 votes. How can that require 4 votes and this require 3?
Mr. Mayor Pro Tem.
I don't know if you remember that.
I do, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, Councilmember Manukian. The general distinction has been, as we treat that charter provision as it applies to zoning, the language in the code, in the charter, has to do with the area of yards, the allowable uses, heights of buildings, and we have not applied that to the building code. As far as I know, we've never applied that particular charter provision to require a 4/5 vote to adopt the building code or amend the building code. My understanding, this doesn't affect the height of buildings, so it wouldn't apply in that regard either.
Okay.
If it would help clarify things, I found the exact provision which confirms that the full Tier 1 would apply only to the 5,000 square feet dwelling, so it would not apply to any new residential construction less than 5,000 square feet, can be found in new section 301.2.3. This is a brand new provision in the code that does not exist in the California code, so only for Glendale would this apply. Single-family dwellings greater than 5,000 square feet. In addition to the provisions as outlined in Section 301.1 of this code, any newly constructed single-family dwelling greater than 5,000 square feet, not including the garage area, shall comply with Cal Green Tier 1. So, therefore, it's expressly stated 5,000 square feet.
Okay. Are there any other questions? Okay, I have a question. Is there anything else that you want to add from either your previous discussion before the council or today's presentation that you haven't presented?
No, there is not.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Tom. I have a few comments. We cannot pass this. We're acting outside of our jurisdiction if we do. The reason I say that, the Cal Green standards, which are perhaps the highest standards in the country, passed by our own California legislature, a very progressive, liberal legislature, unfettered by any need to compromise with any members of the other party, passed Cal Green. I thought those were pretty strict standards myself. What we're saying is, forget what the California legislature did. Let's go one step further. Let's ratchet it down even tighter, another notch or two. And we are not allowed to do so, because the California Health and Safety Code, Section 17958, 17958.5, and 17958.7, requires the governing body of the city, before making any modifications or changes to the California Building Standards Code, make express findings that such changes are necessary because of the local climate, the local geology, and the local topography. There has not been one word addressing the climate, the geology, or the topography. We just can't, as a city council, go out and ratchet up these higher standards. There hasn't been one bit of evidence before us. And to make a change to the current standard that the California legislature passed is irresponsible of us, and we're overstepping our bounds. Now, if someone says, oh, Glendale is the hottest city in California, fine, I could understand that. We're not a Death Valley. We're not sitting on the peak of Mount Whitney where we have the frigid weather. We're not sitting, I can't even think of a geological reason for that. We're not sitting underneath thermal activity where we have to add these extra items. There's been not one single word of discussion on this. Now everyone's going to jump up and say, oh no, we meant to say this. Mr. Tom has stated it all. He says there's nothing more to add. He had a full and complete opportunity. This is just an attempt to ratchet down the standards, and we are not permitted to do so. And for us to act as a council and do that will be challenged by law, and I think we're acting beyond the scope of our authority. Now everyone's going to say, oh, well, back up. It's really hot in Glendale during the summer, and it rains a lot, and we've got a lot of sunshine. No one discussed that. This isn't just an exercise in how tough we can make our building standards. This has to be tailored to the specific city because of our topography, our geology, and our climate. Unless someone tells me that, and unless someone with some expertise can give me that information, we're way out of line. We are just way out of line. This isn't some green train that we're all on. I love green. I do what I can when I'm on the MTA for sustainability and for energy efficiency, but we're just way out of line. I mean, I don't know where anyone can address that at this point. Did I miss something? Were there any discussions on topography, geology, climate? None.
Let's start with the legality.
Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, members of the council, the staff report that was presented with this, as well as the resolution that's part of your agenda, does contain the findings. You're right, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, that in order to deviate from the California Building Code, it does require the legislative body to make those findings of geographic, climatic, or topographic distinctions in Glendale that require the imposition of these standards, and those standards have been presented to the council as part of the report. They are attached to the resolution that's before you, and they are in the packet. So
let's see what it says then. What page is that?
If you go to the resolution,
page 578.
Subsection 2, footnote 3. Come on now, let's be serious. You can write anything you want in the report, but Glendale's climate and topography is no different than 90% of the other cities in California. Come on now, folks. What are we doing here? Really? We're going way overboard.
But we do live in a desert climate. That is a fact.
All of Southern California is a desert?
Every city in Southern California probably.
So how is that a unique condition?
We're first. We're out there first, just like we are in Chromium 6. We're leading the pack.
No. It's not a matter of leading the pack. It's a matter of complying with the health and safety code is what it's about.
Here's the finding. Whereas the City Council and the City of Glendale finds that a departure from California Building Standards Code is reasonably necessary due to local climatic, geological, or topographical conditions.
Those are because it is. Come on now. There's
no reason for it.
Let's be serious, guys. There's many opportunities for us to promote sustainability in our renewable energy program, in our waste recycling, in our water purification. This is not the place to do it because we're overstepping the bounds of the California Health and Safety Code.
how about
Okay,
we make...
if
how about we-
legally that's the case, if Mr. Najarian is right on the legal aspects of it, then there's nothing we can do. However, to the greater, I don't know how to put it, to the greater goals of what we're doing here, I agree with it 100%. I don't think we're doing anything that's going to be onerous or in any way affect your average homeowner, your average commercial building, et cetera, et cetera. Now, to the question whether it's legal or not, that's up to the city attorney whether
The state eventually will put all of these constraints on every city in the state.
But I would say there's other ways to reach those goals, such as providing incentives for solar, such as providing incentives for solar water, not having it mandated. Don't use the stick, use the carrot. And by doing this, we're using a stick against anyone that's going to be building. Now, whether they're going to build, they're going to impose this on everyone else, then let the California legislature do it, not us.
Incentives are being taken away because the money isn't there in Sacramento.
Well, that's another issue, Mr. Weaver. That's just one method of doing it. I mean, we haven't explored the full measure of incentives that we could extend to the community.
We've talked this over a year now. We've been going on this. I introduced a motion. Let me move it. If it ties, it stays over until the mayor comes back. Then we make, because it could be 2-2, it could be 3-1. One way or another, we'll get it settled.
Well, I'm getting a lot of silence from, I think, those elements of the dais that are usually very vocal when...
I'm speaking.
I understand. No, I appreciate your comments.
I'm saying that we live in a desert climate. That is a known fact. Every city in Southern California is living in a dry, arid climate. We have to import our water because we don't have that much water here. So
you're making my point that every area in Southern California, this has to be a specific local condition.
It is specific to Southern California, not to the Midwest, not to the East Coast.
Which is half the state, which is how many in the whole state? Which is probably about 20 million people.
That's right.
Mr. Garcia, you've got to admit that there hasn't been one bit of evidence presented before us, a factual evidence other than conclusionary language in the findings, that this is a local climate issue, geological issue, or topographical issue. Do you agree with that?
Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, I don't, because the exhibit number 1 to the draft resolution includes specific justification for the findings of specific topographical, climatic, and geographical conditions. We've used these justifications on many other occasions to justify alterations or modifications to the building code, such as requiring sprinkling of mid-rise buildings, existing mid-rise buildings, many other occasions. They touch on the justifications that are provided in the exhibit address all 3 findings related to climatic conditions of Glendale, our topography, which is certainly unique in many cases to other sides. We do not have other areas of Los Angeles County and California do not have the hillsides that we have, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, as well as the geographic conditions as well. So my opinion legally is that we have the justification in our staff report and in our resolution to make these findings.
There aren't any facts presented. You're making generalizations about we have hills in our city and how many other cities in California have hills, or it's hot in Glendale. How many other cities does it get hot in? This is what I don't like. I mean, this train gets going, and when you're presented with an argument that is, I don't think it's disputable. I mean, there's no facts. You're not giving me facts, Mr. Garcia. You're telling me what's written, as Mr. Manoukian read. And boy, we're going to slam this thing through no matter what. And I think it's wrong. I really think it's wrong. We've got to follow the laws here. If we want to be green, there's other ways to be green. We're overstepping our bounds here. It's a clear overstepping of our authority of the California Health and Safety.
Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, may I move 7A1 and see if there's a second?
Seconded.
Okay, then let's do a roll call and find out. If it's 2-2, it's carried over.
If I may, there's actually 2 items. There's the item at 7A, which is the ordinance, and then 7A1, which is the resolution. So I suggest you do both. First 7A and then 7A1.
Okay, I'll move 7A.
Second.
Okay, you have 7A and 7A1.
Yeah, 7A is the ordinance, and 7A1 is the resolution adopting the findings.
You want it separated.
Correct.
So 7A.
I would suggest that we delay this for another week because I'm still not comfortable voting for it at this point. So I'll vote no and delay it, or we can just all agree to delay it one more week so that.
Can I get a writ on this? I mean, how can I challenge this at this point? Do I have to do it upon myself, or can I instruct the city attorney to seek a writ and get an opinion as to the findings that are being, I think, just jammed down our throats here? I'm serious about this.
I disagree with that.
I understand, Mr. Weaver. I respect your opinion.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, obviously I can't advise anyone, including a council member, how to challenge an action of the city. All I can tell you is that, in our view, it would be lawful to adopt these findings and to adopt the ordinance, and you can go forward there. And if we can discuss methods to look at other outside opinions. But in terms of a challenge, I really can't advise how to challenge the action of the city.
Okay. There has not been an action yet by the city, number one.
Correct.
Number two, I'm requesting a second opinion by an entity outside of our city attorney's office as to the legality of this process. Surely that can be obtained.
Good. And we'll if it's desire of the more than one council member to have that opinion, we'll come to you as we normally have in those circumstances and ask that you provide us direction.
Who wants to support another opinion, an independent opinion? Wasn't that one of your campaign promises, Mr. Venukian?
No, it wasn't, actually.
I'm not trying to be mean, hostile.
No, I'll support another opinion as long as it doesn't cost the city any money.
Well, let me.
Can I ask a question?
That's my concern.
Procedural question. In terms of this second matter you've raised, I don't know that it's as simple as having two council members ask for one.
No, I just meant for two council members to ask that it be brought back.
Just a matter on the agenda.
Right.
Okay.
That's what I'm saying.
Clarify.
And also, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, what I could suggest too is that since it looks like we're either going to come back because you're not going to vote on it, or because it may end 2-2, then we can all more fully brief this issue before the council. We'd be happy to do that. It's already part of the report. We'd be happy to explain what goes into making these findings and what the support is for them. We can certainly do that as part of the next, when it comes back.
Just come back the same night?
Well, if you actually vote on it and it's 2-2, it'll come back on each agenda until there's a vote.
We had anticipated the possibility of a 2-2 vote and anticipated in that case it coming back on the 10th. But whether or not Mr. Garcia can adequately brief this by then would be something he'd have to answer. In which case it would be May 31st until there's the next full city council.
Except if it's a 3-2 next week, one way or the other, it'd be a mute issue, wouldn't it? Moot issue.
Or a 4-1.
Huh?
Or a 4-1.
Yeah, 4-1. So,
or a 5-0.
Could
bump
be.
that out.
Could be 5-0. Could be 5-0.
What's your pleasure?
Like I said, if you want to carry it over to next week, I'm willing to do that. But today, I'm not ready. I'm not comfortable enough to vote on it. To vote yes on it, I'll put it that way.
If I can, indication that would be whether or not the maker of the motion and the second wish to withdraw.
I guess so, Frank.
That's fine.
We agree. Yeah.
So
it'll be carried over to next week.
At the mayor's direction, without any objection, we'd hold the matter over to May 10th.
And let the mayor know what's going on.
Call the mayor pro tem.
We have a council.
We have a full council. Yeah. We anticipate a full council on the 10th and the 31st of this month.
I think I'll skip.
I say
What's
we
coming
anticipate.
back? Let's be clear. What's coming back on May 10th?
Well, certainly this ordinance would come back on the 10th. I would anticipate further briefing by the city attorney on the facts supporting the findings, and then whether or not you want to place on that same agenda your question about a second opinion. That would be a question for you, with consent from a second member to place it on the agenda.
Does that end that issue?
Pardon me?
Does that end this issue?
For tonight, I think it does.
Well,
I still want to make a comment. I'm not, well, let's make the decision on it.
So to continue it to next week?
Yep.
Right.
Has to. It looks like it's 2-2.
Yeah.
We just get a motion.
And I will instruct Mr. Stewart Tom to come to my office first thing tomorrow morning to go over this ordinance.
You'll be happy.
Again.
I mean, I would like, in addition to that, I would like some history as to the legislative intent behind that health and safety code.
Okay.
I think that's what I'm reading, and that's what I'm understanding that to be. And unless the words that are written do not have the same meaning that I've learned throughout my experience, I need to know that.
Mr. Mayor Pro Tem?
Mr. Starber.
I would suggest anticipation of that work.
And May 31st.
The 10th would likely be too early to bring this back, in which case I'd suggest the 31st.
And I would concur with that.
But this ordinance will have to come back next week.
Well, not necessarily.
Not necessarily.
At the Mayor Pro Tem's direction and without objection, you could ask the matter to come back specifically on May 31st, which is the next full council after May 10. I'm just concerned with Mr. Garcia's ability to get all the work done that Mr. Najarian and others have asked for here in a week.
If we took a motion tonight and it passed, the rest would be moot, right? You could bring back anything a year from now or whatever. It wouldn't matter if we passed the ordinance here tonight, right?
I think if there are 3 votes this evening to adopt the ordinance.
Yeah.
I'm saying next week it might be 3. So it won't matter what he does a month from now.
Oh, well, wait a minute. If he comes back a month from now and says, you know what, Najarian, you're right, that Glendale does not have a local climate, topography, or geological issue, we acted improperly, that would matter. So before we step into something, let's find out that...
Then we change the ordinance. We've done that before. Adopt ordinances and find out we have to make changes, reverse or change. We've done that.
I want to aim first and then fire, instead of firing and then aiming.
Well, I think it's 3-2.
Okay.
If I may, I just would say we don't mind spending a little bit of time to brief this issue, just to give all the council members answers to these questions. I think they are important, and we don't mind. We certainly don't mind continuing it to the 31st, so that we can provide some more information for everybody.
Okay, leaving Mr. Najarian's legal analysis to the side to be determined later, but let's talk a little bit about what we're doing here, because it seems like, oh my God, we're doing something that's so out of the norm, so onerous, etc. Just reading a few. Section 11, this amendment ensures that all new buildings that employ a gas-fired space heating or air conditioning cooling equipment use a high-efficiency appliance. Section 12, the amendment ensures that all new buildings that employ a gas-fired tankless or storage water heater use a high-efficiency appliance. Section 16, amendment increases the available natural ventilation and fresh air circulation, larger openable windows and doors that will enable the occupants to rely upon less upon artificial interior lights, thus saving energy each day. So it's not the end of the world. I mean, this is not so onerous.
I'd like to know, Mr. Hassan, how many new dwelling units do we usually have on the average a year?
I can tell you not very many during this economy. We haven't had a lot, maybe but 1 or 2.
1 or 2?
This year, yes.
Serious impact, I tell you, real serious.
But we can't make policy based on the economic conditions today. It's important to make good policy in terms of...
This isn't going to impact 200 dwelling units coming online.
Next year, the economy could heat up and you can have 200.
This is a pretty built-out city. I don't know how many lots are left to build.
I might note you have projects currently underway creating residential property, but they're multifamily.
Yeah.
And these standards would apply to those. So you have in the neighborhood of 600 to 700 housing units currently in the pipeline for your greater downtown area.
Yeah, not single family.
Yeah, no, but not single family. No, you're right. You'll have very few of those in the future.
I guess we can move on, eh?
Are we entitled to an Attorney General opinion on this? As I would request one.
Mr. Mayor, Pro Tem, members of council, we can always ask our assembly member or state senator to request an Attorney General's opinion on the matter. It does take a significant amount of time to not only put together the request, but then get the response back from the Attorney General's opinions unit. My understanding is they've cut staff and they're taking some time, but
length of time aside, don't you feel that would be a more deliberate course of action to get the opinion from the Attorney General's office?
Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, I believe that we should first provide a response to the question in a more full analysis, and then if the council feels strongly enough that additional review by an independent body is necessary, then we cross that bridge when we come to it.
I may cross that bridge at some point. But
Understood.
I'll wait for your announcement.
So what's the direction at this point?
Needs more than May 10th, more time than May 10th. So May
Well,
31st.
and I had anticipated that the matter coming back would include those other two items you had asked for, but I'm hearing some disagreement on the council. If there's no action, this matter would normally come back on the 10th, but it may not be accompanied with the work that Mr. Garcia would need to do.
Won't the mayor have something to say when she gets back?
Well, the mayor's not here, so if the matter's just held over, it'll come on the 10th, and you can have this whole conversation again.
Well, I mean, I think that's the best bet. Let's have a conversation next week, and maybe you'll have some time, and we'll decide next week whether to go get another opinion.
I don't have a problem with 10th or the 31st.
But if you haven't, with the understanding, though, that if the city attorney has not had enough time, that you are communicative of that you say, I haven't had enough time to go through all these, and your whatever opinion you may have prepared is or is not a full opinion.
Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, we'll have significant information for you next week if the council decides to bring it back next week. We'd always have a better opinion or more information if we come back to the 31st, but we'll have information that will be significant to you next week.
Okay. If we vote on it and it's tied, it comes back May 10th.
Correct.
Or if you don't vote, it'll come back on May 10th.
Right.
Which your next
Or if we
regular
don't
meeting.
vote?
Well, the motion, the second was withdrawn, so I had anticipated it would naturally come back on the 10th.
Right.
I think you need to also address what, in addition to that, you want to have the city attorney agendize. For example, if you wish to ask for a second opinion from an outside city attorney's firm, that matter should also be placed on the agenda. And that would take a consenting request.
Well, let's talk about it next week. We can put it on the. We can put that on the agenda also. If we want an independent.
Well, I mean, my only point is that I've raised an issue. I would like a full discussion of that issue from our legal staff. I just don't want to say, well, here's the third vote, bang, here we go. I don't want that because that doesn't do justice, and that really is not what we're about here. I have a feeling that that's what you guys are waiting to do. You know that Mayor Friedman is going to, 3-2 or 4-1, there we go.
She will.
Motion passes. I don't think that's what we are about as a city. This isn't a time-sensitive issue. I think we've always held each other's opinions in high regard, and this is a legitimate request for some clarification on what I find is a critical issue facing us. If you guys want to bring in number 3,
I just wish this had been done a year ago. We've been on this 14 months at least.
Well, why am I the only one to raise this then at this point? I mean, that's pretty sad.
I'm not an attorney.
then.
I don't see a legal problem. You do. The city attorney doesn't agree with you.
For 14 months, why is it on this very last moment where I, really scrutinized the details of this, why is it raised now? That's another issue altogether, where something like this should have been raised by the staff and should have been at least presented to us as an issue. Mr. Tom had every opportunity. It wasn't even on his radar screen.
But none of us
The city attorney wrote the findings, slam dunk. Come on. That bothers me, too.
Mr. Najarian, none of us saw it as an issue or a problem but you. So if nobody saw it as an issue, why should we have thought about it a year ago? You've raised it tonight for the first time. Okay? Now it's an issue. Let staff go do their thing. No use belittling staff and talking
let's do
down
your
to staff
thing,
and chewing them up.
Is this an urgent matter for everyone? You can't wait till the 31st, so maybe Mr. Najarian can calm down?
Let me ask you this.
Oh, now wait a minute.
I understand.
Don't say that, Mr. Mnuchin.
Okay,
Don't say calm.
my apologies,
I mean, for me, many times it is about the process, and this is something that
I understand, but
very
if you guys have been through it for a year, why is this issue coming up the day of the vote? I don't understand.
That's my point.
Well, I think that the time
and this is it's not an urgent ordinance, so I think the others would be well to give you the time you need to be comfortable with what you're voting for.
I want my colleagues to be comfortable to see that we're going too far. I mean, that's what I'd like to do. So I would like them to be comfortable, not feel that they've got to vote on this next week.
Like I said, I'm okay with the 31st. It's the others that you need to convince.
The 31st is fine.
Okay.
Mayor, if there's direction to bring the matter back on the 31st, then that's when it'll appear on the
We'll do it
agenda.
on the 31st.
But let me just clarify once again. So what you're saying is that, number one, staff is wrong, not allowed to go further than the Cal Green Code, and then number two, that they haven't, that the findings are not valid. Right? Those are your two legal contentions.
That the findings are not made, and that
the findings are not made.
No
yeah.
such findings can be made.
Right.
Those are my issues.
I think you're going to lose, but I'm willing to wait till the 31st. Let's see.
If I can, if held off the 31st, we would bring back further review by the city attorney's office. The question, do you want the matter of seeking a second opinion to be agendized?
Do you feel you can do an unbiased? I mean, this is your baby. I mean, in many respects, I'm asking you to throw out your work and your advice and all your activity up to this point. If I were in your shoes, I would say, boy, you know what? You put me in a spot. I need a second opinion on this because I've worked so hard and our office has been committed to this.
I think he and Scott Howard will have a conference together.
Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, we feel we can provide a solid, unbiased opinion, and we're open to the full council giving us direction to the second opinion if that's your desire. Obviously, we feel we can provide you an honest opinion. We wouldn't be here if we didn't feel that way.
Have you ever been wrong before?
Of course.
Have you ever admitted it?
Yes.
Have you ever been wrong? Have you ever admitted it? I've been wrong, and I've admitted
Lost
it.
any cases, Mr. Attorney?
I'm not right all the time. There's that one time I thought I was wrong.
Is that your direction, Mr. Mayor?
Yes, let's go May 31st.
May 31st with the matter of, are we putting on or not the matter of the second opinion?
Listen, I don't support a second opinion if it's going to cost the city any money.
You wouldn't
If
get
there's someone who's willing to give us a honest, legal opinion on this matter,
Maybe
I'd
Mr.
take it.
Zavos, professor of law at Loyola University, retired,
also do
can help us. Is he here?
Yeah, he's here.
Oh, he is here. Would you be willing to look this over, sir?
I would not, but I would suggest the city is in a position to ask the Attorney General.
Wait a minute.
Come on.
Wait a minute.
Oh, I thought it was just, I'm sorry.
No, hold on, Mr. Zavos.
He asked a question.
I asked a
of it.
question, and Mr. Zavos, please come forward. We're talking about second opinion, and I'm wondering if you'd be interested in giving us an opinion.
I would not, but I would suggest that the city is in a position at no cost to ask for an opinion from the Attorney General, and he would supply such an opinion. So you have to simply set out the facts, set out the question, and then ask the Attorney General for opinion, and he will produce it. And while that's not binding law, it is persuasive authority.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. Okay, we'll hold off on actually requesting that, but I would like a form of that request to be prepared. You understand? I mean, let's not send it out, but I'd like to see
Can we still send it out after the vote?
To be clear, a request has to come through your assembly member or your state senator.
Correct. And we
understand.
Yeah, but we can prepare that, just a form. Okay. It's not an extensive process.
Okay, May 31st then.
I have one more quick question. Do you know if other cities have modified the code yet?
I believe so. Mr. Tom may have more information. I believe many cities have done this, gone beyond what the Cal Green requires, and made the findings.
Mm-hmm. Do you know what cities those are?
I don't, but that's certainly something we'll bring back
Mr. Tom
at the 31st, and Mr. Tom may know.
Okay, so let's talk about certainties here.
Yeah.
Because it matters what city. That's my point. Death Valley, certain climatic conditions. Mount Whitney, Bishop, different. Truckee, different.
Burbank?
I don't know.
Completely different.
I think Glendale's climate is not vastly different than 80% of the other cities in California. Anyway, that's my assumption, and that's not expert.
31st?
31st.
Mr. Mayor, at the risk of beating this proverbial horse, we're placing on the ordinance the further research by the City Attorney's Office on the question you've raised, other cities that have adopted increased findings, do you want the matter of a second opinion on the agenda?
No. Aside from the other cities, I'd like to see the findings that the other cities made. Not just a list of cities. I mean, let's find out what it is that they did.
Okay, we'll gather what we can in a period of time.
Okay, so that disposes of item 7 for this evening. Next item, please.
You sure there are no more questions?
Next item, item 6 is oral communications. Discussion is limited to items not a part of this agenda. Each speaker is allowed 5 minutes.
I have an engagement too.
Council may question or respond to the speaker, but there will be no debate or decision. City manager may refer the matter to the appropriate department for investigation and report.
If I brought back item 7, would that be a...
I think it would be fine as far as I'm concerned, yeah.
That wouldn't be enough to pass it, okay. Patrick Masihi, followed by Charles Hooker and Lynn Myers.
Pro Tem Nigerian and members of the City Council, I just want to say kudos to all of you. That was amazing. That was democracy at work. What we saw here tonight is really Mayor Pro Tem Nigerian's conviction about what is going on here, and I have to tell him, he really went ahead with his convictions. A politician would not do that, and that's why you're a true representative of the people. We appreciate that. I also want to thank Mr. Weaver for actually reintroducing this. He has all the good intentions, and so do Ms. Friedman and Mr. Quintero, who are on board on this issue. But the real thing here to consider is that you have to make sure it goes with the Cal Green's requirements, and it does not go beyond. It does not go beyond what Cal Green's is implementing throughout the state. We are living in a city with contradictions when it comes to policy. We live in a city where to this date you cannot have artificial grass in the front yard, where it can save you thousands and thousands of gallons. But yet we are being told you need to do this on your dwelling if you're going to build a new dwelling. And that's what the contradictions are coming in, and that's what's bothering us as residents, where certain policies are being ignored while others are being implemented. We are living in a city where a 40-gallon waste container is not offered to the residents at a lower rate, as it is in Burbank, Pasadena, Altadena, and so on. These are the questions that we're asking you. If you are truly about the green lifestyle, then let's talk about some of these policies. How long are we going to see those artificial grass samples outside? Are we going to wait another 10 years to make a decision on that? This City Council has held on to that for, over a year and a half now? How long are you going to test those artificial grass to actually go along and approve it just like other cities across the Southwest have done? See, these are the contradictions that make some of us really weary of what is going on here. And again, credit to Mr. R. Nigerian, the man has his own convictions, and tonight he was not a politician. He actually is a true representative of the people, and he came up and he actually objected to this. Again, all of you have the good intentions. All of you have the good intentions concerning this particular ordinance. It will eventually get passed with the return of the mayor. There's no question about it. But we have to go through the process. We have to make sure it's legal. Everything there that's, including the 12 amendments, are going to be accepted. There will be no legal challenges in the future because it will cost the taxpayers more money to go back and fight some of the challenges that might come up. But again, important steps have to be taken. We have to look at the green lifestyle as a whole. And in this city, unfortunately, that's not the case. We're taking baby steps when it comes to the green lifestyle. Other cities are taking leaps. Let me give you a clear example of what I'm talking about here. In the city of Riverside, if you purchase an electric vehicle, not only are you going to qualify for the $7,500 that's coming from the federal government, the city of Riverside gives you $5,000 on top of the $7,500 coming from the federal government. I don't see that in the city of Glendale. There are other cities that have actually done the research, done the work in terms of getting funding, grants from different sources to really push for the green lifestyle. Glendale is far behind. And again, that's the frustration where you come up with these ordinances and you say, oh, well, these people now have to have this in their home, but we're not going to let you have a 40-gallon wastebasket, or we're not going to let you have artificial grass, so you can save more money like that. That's what the contradiction comes in. If you really care about the green lifestyle, then add those in your ordinances. But again, it's all about whose family member is involved with what kind of business. And that's what bothers many of us, where you guys are voting on issues where you have certain family members that are in a certain industry and you're trying to protect their income somehow. Again, let's step away from the politics. Let's be the true representatives of the people of Glendale. And tonight we saw all of you that kind of stepped away from that political shell, and you became really true representative of the people of Glendale. And I know, again, it was great. It has been a long time since I've seen council members go at it with such passion. And all of you have your points. And I hope we can make the wise decisions. And again, take the proper steps to become fully green rather than just spots here and there and say, oh, you know what, we're going to do this, but not that. Let's talk about the green lifestyle as a whole. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Charles Hooker, followed by Lynn Myers.
My name is Charles Hooker, City Councilman, and I would like to say, first of all, welcome back, Mr. Zern. And I live in the Verdugo Weedlands in the 1900 block of Los Encinos. In front of my house, we have an island that belongs to the city of Glendale, which the city of Glendale does not maintain. They maintain the island on Glen Oaks beautifully. And you see people out there working every week when I go by on Glen Oaks. And I would, if they could do something maybe 3 times a year on that little island that belongs to the city, we wouldn't have such an eyesore out there. We have weeds that are 4 foot tall, and some of them are, believe it or not, all the way up to 8 foot tall. And I don't understand the city's logic. We need some ground cover. It would sure help out, because we have there's Alpha Road on one side and Los Encinos on the other side. And that's called Trash Island out there, because the people park on one side, they walk over to the condo and dump all of their condoms, their whatever that they have, their trash, and everybody else has to clean it. We never get to see a street cleaner up there because the cars are always parked up there. If we could have a stop sign, well, I believe in miracles again. And so we need to beautify our area too. But if we could have a couple of trees planted on that island, I'll even throw in to buy a tree. The city will just give us the blessing to have somebody come up there and dig it. I'll even pay for a day labor to come up there. And we just need something up there so that it won't look like Eyesore Island. And of course, what I'm saying is I'm probably trying to talk to the City of Hope. But I just hope that we can get something done in our city of Glendale. And since the 5th of May is coming along, I want to say to all the Hispanic people in Glendale, Happy Cinco de Mayo. Thank you.
Thank you. Lynn Myers, followed by Noemi Martinez.
Good evening. My name is Lynn Myers. One would expect the members of our city commissions and boards to be individuals of impeccable character and integrity. Having said that, I would like to give a brief rundown on some of Mr. Manukian's commission nominations announced at last week's council meeting. I'll start with Mr. Richard Espiritu. It has been publicly reported in the news media that Mr. Espiritu has a criminal history. Also, that he falsely identified himself as a doctor here in these chambers at numerous council meetings and was driving with a suspended license on more than one occasion. This is the individual Mr. Manukian nominated for the Traffic and Transportation Commission. Mr. Aram Kazazian, that would be Mr. El Tovar. Who could ever forget the massive mansion on the hill with multiple building code violations? It was reported in the news media at the time that an outside investigation conducted, I believe, by a law firm in San Diego and initiated by the city revealed, among other things, that Mr. Kazazian had used his connections on the city's building and zoning commissions, of which he was a member, to circumvent city ordinances and manipulate the system to his advantage. Aram Kazazian, Mr. El Tovar, a major stain on our city. Mr. Vartan Garpetian, who was involved in a major conflict of interest issue when he was serving as a DRB member. And this also was reported in the news media at the time. Instead of doing what he was supposed to be doing, looking out for the residents of Glendale and the integrity of our neighborhoods, he set up his own private and secretive organization, allegedly to counteract our homeowners associations. And of course, he was unseated. Mr. Manukian, you ought to be ashamed of yourself. And I certainly hope that your other nominees have the character and integrity that these individuals clearly lack.
You, Noemi Martinez?
I believe
Mr. Muradian left.
yes, they did.
Margaret Hammond and Harry Zavos.
Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem, members of council, staff, and audience. My name is Margaret Hammond, and I've been a resident of the city for over 50 years, living in the same house. Anyway, one of my main things in life, of course, is the bulky item pickup. And I'm so glad to see Mr. Zern back, but I see he's not here right at the moment. I do think it's improving on the pickup. And actually, I met somebody from Neighborhood Services this morning, and he was going with his truck picking up items like shopping carts and so forth. And there was a bulky item, and I mentioned it to him, and pretty quick it was taken care of. So it is amazing that if we all work together, we can make our city beautiful. The other thing are weeds on vacant lots, particularly on my hill. I live on Adams Hill. Pretty scary right now because they're, I don't know, a couple feet long, and along the boulevard and on the vacant hills. And I know they tell me, I don't know whose responsibility, whether it's the fire department or neighborhood services. But I do think we need to take care of that particular problem. Tomorrow night, National Night Out, they're having a meeting for National Night Out at the police station, which is Wednesday the 4th, and they're going to be helping people or instructing people on what to do on National Night Out, how to have them, and so forth. And it's going to be a fun event, really, as we've had last year, many years. Now, we need these National Night Out people, and we need neighborhood people to watch out for their neighbors and their neighborhood, because the police department, as you know, is shorthanded. And hopefully there will not be any more cuts in the budget of the police department, because they are going to be facing a major problem when these parolees are let out of the state prisons, and they will be unsupervised. Nobody will follow them. They'll be dumped on each individual city, including Glendale. We will be housing those people in our jail. They won't be going to the state prisons. And it's going to be a big job for the police department, particularly since they're already short-handed. So just keep that in mind when you're voting on the budget. We can forget having attendance in the parks, we can forget a lot of things. But we cannot do away with having a police cruisers cruising our city and looking out for us and coming when we need them. That's very important. So I do hope you'll remember that. The other thing is, I collect items for the troops, and I went to the American Legion a couple of weeks ago with my friend down on Newport, and I had stopped at 99-cent store and bought, $75 worth of stuff, toothpaste, brushes, hairbrushes, so forth, and went into the Legion, and a young man came toward me and said, "Oh, can I help you?" Because I was carrying these bags, staggering in with them. And I looked at him and I said, "Yes." And he said, "Oh, what are these for?" And I told him, and he said, "I just came back from my second tour in Afghanistan." And he said, "You would not believe how much we look forward to people sending us these items." He said, "It's more than Christmas." And that was the first I'd ever heard. And I've been doing it, for a couple of years, have a lot of people that bring me things. So it really is heartwarming to know that the guys really, really appreciate it. He said, "Oh my gosh, it's wonderful to get deodorants and toothpaste and brushes and so forth." Now talk about Shangri-La, you brought it up again. My mother and father came from Toronto. They were already retired. They were 65. They got jobs when they were here in Glendale. My father worked actually and got Social Security. But my dad called Glendale Shangri-La. He loved it, and they did. They really enjoyed it, but they went back because their health plan would take care of them in Toronto that they didn't have here. But he just loved Glendale. He said this was his Shangri-La. And he would go out, and my mom and dad, they'd walk on Brand Boulevard in those years up and down the shops. So maybe when we're looking at tornadoes hitting other areas and floods and fires and snow, I think, was on the news. So we don't have that right now. I hope we don't get that anymore. But we do live in a wonderful, wonderful city. Thank you.
Thank you, Margaret. Harry Zava?
Mr. Najarian, you're going to have to stop a minute. Mr. Weaver chose not to be here again tonight. I'm going to the back. We don't have a quorum, so I'll be back in a minute.
I think we can
So we'll
continue
need to take
with
a
public comment.
brief break.
We'll take a recess. We'll take a short recess. DTV 6. We are back from our short recess due to a loss of a quorum, but we're back now. The three stalwarts. Mayor Friedman is in Washington, to be fair. Mr. Zavos.
Council, my name's Harry Zavos. I'm a resident of Glendale, and I'm here tonight to address the Wildan report, a consultant's report that was prepared on behalf of the city and suggests several ways in which charter authorized water fees that had been transferred to the general fund but were lost because of Proposition 28 could be recouped. Now, one way that it suggests is by use of its model, which recalculates the obligation of the waterworks and the electrical works to pay for city services which are provided to it and to other city agencies. Now, let me give you an example here. We have a deputy city attorney, and the city attorney's office provides legal services for various agencies of the city, including GWP. And it, like other agencies, is allocated its cost for the operation of the city attorney's office. Now, these services provided to GWP and other agencies are allocated to GWP as a whole. But traditionally, GWP, they've been further reallocated as between the water side and the electrical side on a 25%, 75% ratio. 25% for water, 75% of electrical. And these ratios roughly track the number of accounts for each. Water has roughly 36,000 accounts. Electrical has roughly 100,000 accounts. So the ratio between 36 and 100 is a ratio of 26% to 74%. Now, I say roughly because the 100,000 plus some hundreds of the electrical accounts, for simplicity's sake, I've rounded down to 100. And the 36,000 plus a few hundred water accounts, I have rounded down to 36. So we have 100, let's keep that in mind, 100 electrical accounts, 100,000 electrical accounts, 36,000 water accounts, a ratio of 26 to 74. Now, the Wildam model seeks to reallocate these costs from 25.75 to 32.68. By doing that, it frees up an additional $2 million on the electrical side, which has to be borne by the water side. And because the electrical side isn't subject to Proposition 218, that $2 million can be transferred to the general fund, and at least based on the first budget session meeting, that's precisely what the proposed budget provides. Now, this reallocation is done by Wyndham identifying 7 specific categories made up of subcategories. And all of those subcategories presently are allocated between water and electrical on 25%, 75%. And the Wyndham model would change those balances. Sometimes it might be 18%, 82%. But let's take one of those categories because I think the model deserves to be critically looked at and explained by Wyndham. One of those categories is the mail operation conducted by GWP, made up of 4 subcategories, presently on a 25-75% ratio, and Wyndham would reallocate those 50-50. Now, we know that there are 100 accounts. So the mailing operation for electrical has to send out 100 bills. 100,000, I'm kidding. And we know that with water we have 36,000 accounts. So for the first 36,000 accounts, that envelope, if you'll give me 2 minutes, not 1 minute, I'll finish it up, and instead of having to come back. What that means is that first 36,000 will be should be shared equally by water and by electrical. So that 36% should be shared, 18% water, 18% electrical. But the remaining 64,000 or 64%, there is no water bill. And reason and fairness would say that should be borne only by the electrical side, which means the ratio should be 18 to 82. But Wyndham would say 50-50. Now, I think fairness and rationality, you have to ask the question, why should the waterworks pay for half of those $64,000 64,000 bills that contain no bill for water, but only a bill for electrical? It simply doesn't make sense, and it seems to me you've got to take a critical look at that. There has to be some rational explanation to go against what is the common sense that I've laid out here. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I have no other cards. Are there any comments? Mr. Manoukian?
Yes, I would like to welcome everyone that comes up and speaks in front of the council, and they should all feel free to express their opinions, and I welcome both criticisms and accolades. So thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Zern, I would say you heard the concerns by Mr. Hooker about Trash Island, and
yes.
What else was there? There's another name for it.
Yes. And we actually do maintain that. But
and I know we plant trees throughout the city,
sure.
Maybe Glendale Beautiful.
We have had to visit that circle before.
We do it regularly.
Yeah.
So
maybe we can.
There's something going on there.
Find something
rather unusual.
We
maintain a number of circles in the community, and they're maintained quite well. So something else must be going on.
The other thing that I'd like to raise, I could have raised it in council comments, but it wasn't germane at that point. But I'd like to have on the agenda a discussion of attendance and departure from the dais during a meeting, a discussion of that and possible either policy guidelines we can develop, or if we have to go as far as an ordinance, because it really left us in a tight situation with just 3 of us and some council members.
And it's unfair to the public who's here to speak.
Among other things. So is there someone who would second that?
A second for that.
Second that idea? Yeah. And we can discuss it and maybe create something that would encourage full attendance at the meetings. If there's nothing else, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
We adjourn.
We're adjourned.